820, Big 550, KTRS. I love these stories. These stories tickle my Rathbone, if you will. See what I did there? On the line is a historian. Belinda Rathbone has written a new book called The Boston Raphael, the story of her father, Perry Rathbone. She'll be at Left Bank Books Saturday at 4 p.m. Belinda, welcome to KTRS here in St. Louis.
Thank you, McGraw. It's great to be here.
You got it. Let's talk about, let's start at the beginning. This story starts in 1969?
Yeah, in a way, it starts in '65 when the Boston Museum was gearing up for its centennial year, which was 1970, and the pressure was on my father who was then director of the MFA here in Boston, to buy something absolutely spectacular that would draw attention to the museum. In 1969. In a way, the story begins because that's when he purchased this painting attributed to Raphael.
Okay, Raphael being one of the great Renaissance painters of, right? That's Raphael, yeah. from history, from art history class.
Oh yeah,
right.
this is the very same,
right?
Raphael, yeah.
Okay,
of the high Renaissance.
And so, after your father purchased the painting, it was called into question.
That's true.
So what
After
happened?
it went on display, it wasn't called into question before the Boston Museum and the Board of Trustees and so on agreed to purchase it. It wasn't until it was up on the wall, unveiled, and was attracting media attention all over the world. An unknown Raphael was a sensation, that some experts doubted the attribution, for one thing. They weren't sure that it was by Raphael, after all. These doubts are, they tend to happen in art circles, especially with something so rare.
Sure.
And valuable. So we don't just, collapse and say, oh, well, maybe it isn't. But still, it was a very disturbing development, shall we say.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so, all right, the book is called The Boston Raphael, a mysterious painting, an embattled museum in an era of change and a daughter's search for the truth. So, how old were you when all this is taking place?
I was about 20. I was an art student, and I was close by and enjoyed, the events of the centennial year. I could also see that my father was under a lot of pressure, but I don't think I understood quite how much pressure he was under.
So
when you're 20, you kind of have your mind on
other things, sure.
Other things.
So you go back and you research this, you look at this, and I certainly don't want to give away the ending, but yeah. You sort of take a looking back as to the who, the what, the why, the good, and the ugly.
Oh, exactly. Not that this was something that we didn't talk about in the family. My father was very open about it. And actually, I don't mind giving away the ending because the ending is where the book begins with my journey back to Florence, Italy, to visit the disputed painting where it now sits in storage at the Uffizi. And I think this has not deterred the reader from reading on, even though they know what's going to happen in the end, because what you want to know is why that happened and how it happened.
Yeah.
And part of the problem was not just the attribution problem, but the fact that an Italian art sleuth was intent on finding the source of this painting and investigating whether it had been removed from Italy without the authorities being involved, which is, of course, how everything was removed from Italy back in those days. So anyway, the other part of the story, the subplot, shall we say, is the way that this art sleuth managed to persuade the Board of Trustees of the museum that the picture should be returned to Italy.
Your father bought the painting for $600,000, correct?
That is correct. Yep.
And in all of these stories about finding the Declaration of Independence in a frame at a flea market, or pulling a Pollock out of the garbage and buying it for $10, it seems like there is a cottage industry of these art experts who can tell you definitively yes it is, and then somebody else can tell you definitively no it's not.
Well, that's true, and that is sort of the way of the art world, and always will be. And no matter what advances there are in science, and so many people believe that science is the all-time decision maker, should we say. It's still a matter of really understanding the artist and the artist's work extremely well, but people understand artists' work differently. And there are further developments in the scholarship and connoisseurship that will always add another dimension.
The book is called The Boston Raphael, A Mysterious Painting, an Embattled Museum in an Era of Change, and the Daughter's Secret for the Truth.
What surprising thing did you learn about your father after all of this research?
Oh, that's a great question, Kelly. I learned so much about my father, a lot of just really interesting background, including his 15 years as director of the St. Louis Art Museum. But surprising, I think what was most surprising to me was to learn that he was rather a controversial figure. We always thought he was, everybody loved him and he was doing a great job, and we knew that there might be one or two detractors, but they didn't know what they were talking about, of course. And so it was rather shocking to learn that there were people who actually wanted to see him step down as director.
So the painting sits at the Uffizi in Florence,
yes,
under lock and key, under a big quilt. Is it an original Raphael?
Well, that's a question that I am not really in a position to answer, because I'm not a Raphael expert. I'm not even a Renaissance art expert. A lot of people, certainly the Italian consensus is that it is not a Raphael. But there are other art historians who are extremely knowledgeable who would like to have a look again.
Right.
I mean, this all happened back in the 1970s. I mean, when it was returned to Italy, this was a long time ago in terms of connoisseurship and scholarship and science.
Which begs the question, Belinda Rathbone, and you'll be at Left Bank Books this Saturday at 4 o'clock in the Central West End. Why now? Why tell this book? Why write this book now?
That's a great question. I actually thought of writing it quite a long time ago, but it was a little too painful when it was closer to that time. I don't think anyone wanted to revisit it. And I don't, even though there are people who were then alive who would have been extremely helpful, it just wasn't something that I think we felt we had enough perspective on. Now, I think with so many stories of repatriation, especially in the area of antiquities, this is really, really an important topic, and it's very important for us to understand it from many points of view. So I think I present a different point of view.
Belinda Rathbone, Belinda Rathbone, our guest. The book is called The Boston Raphael, A Mysterious Painting, an Embattled Museum in an Era of Change, and a Daughter's Search for the Truth. Left Bank Books, 4 o'clock on Saturday for a book signing and a book reading, and certainly questions and answers. One last question for you, Belinda. Mm-hmm. Did your father buy the painting from Bill Belichick? Because if he did, it's a fake. Because he's a cheater. Because Belichick's a cheater, so your dad was hoodwinked.
No, he bought it from an old time art dealer in Genoa,
Okay.
Italy.
Was he dressed up as somebody wearing a Patriots cutoff hoodie? Well,
Belinda, he's not letting this go. By any
Okay,
means.
right.
Belinda, have a good trip here in St. Louis.
Okay, thank you very
Take care.
much.
You got
Great
it.
to be there.
Belinda Rathbone. The book is The Boston Raphael, Left Bank Books, Saturday, 4 o'clock, 8:30 KTRS.